Welcome to today's session. We are going to cover all you need to know about HMOs. And please help me welcome Jassim, our own man. So tell us, Jassim, where can people start from? And I've been in the industry and I've seen everything that is there to know about HMOs. But let's just start. If someone wants to build a HMO portfolio of 5, 10, 15, 20 units, where do they start? Where do they look and what do they look for?
Hey Jack, thank you for having me first of all. Now, getting to your question, what to look for, where to start. You start in a place, first you decide why you want to do HMOs, because you need it should not be HMOs can't, or anything for that, any business can't be for that matter. I will try this, if not, I will do something else. Because you need to have a very clear why as to what's the reason behind you doing it. So that's where you start. And once you have that in place, you start by looking at different areas which have demand for multi-let rooms, shared accommodation. Now, that demand can come from students, that demand can come from professionals, that demand can come from workforce. So that demand can come from various places. Your white collar employees, your blue collar employees,
Yeah,
any one of those three.
yeah.
So once you decide whom you want to cater to, you decide your mix, and at that stage you start looking at different areas. Like for
Mhm.
example, Derby was saturated with HMOs targeting white collar and blue collar workforce in the automobile and aerospace industry. Similarly, Coventry is saturated in central city center. Coventry is saturated with HMOs catered to students. But while you're doing that, you also need to be aware things might be getting saturated, and when HMOs are getting saturated in an area, that's when council tends to bring in Article 4.
Yep.
So you could use that as a possible prediction that Derby is going to be Article 4 soon, Coventry is going to be Article 4 soon.
Yep. Yep.
You don't know when it's going to happen. It's still not Article 4. So like Birmingham recently turned Article 4 and so on and so forth. So when you're looking at, that's how you go about finding the areas where you want to cater to. And having an HMO in a saturated area is both good and bad.
Yep.
The reason it is good, because you are it will soon become Article 4 and your valuation will increase.
Yep.
The reason it is bad, because you are in a red ocean.
Yep.
You're not going into a blue ocean, and the only way you can segregate yourself from your competition is by providing something very different at a very competent price.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. At the same time, I believe Article 4 is actually good for the market because if it is oversaturated and there's loads of supply and not enough demand, they might as well just bring Article 4 and make it useful for those who are already in the market and have HMOs.
True.
Yeah.
Agreed. See, Article 4 is more like a planning directive. They just want to control
Yeah.
the permitted development rights for conversion from C3 to C4.
Yeah. That's all.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
That's more or less Article 4.
Okay, so in essence, one needs to do their research and make sure that there is enough demand if they were to convert any property into a HMO, that there's no Article 4, because if there is Article 4, they are very less likely to get a permission to use it as a HMO.
Yes,
Not that they won't, but they're less likely.
exactly.
I remember one day you had mentioned something that I was not aware of fully, but I think I learned that from you, is that if just because an area is Article 4 doesn't mean that you're not going to get a license. What it
Yeah.
means is that you may go on the waiting list, and if there was one property that goes out of that list and doesn't, they stop using it as a HMO, then if you are first in the list, that you're more likely to get
N-
a,
No, 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 no. License and Article 4 are two separate issues altogether. They are
no, no,
unlinked, separate
okay,
issues.
okay, correct
Even
me if
if
I'm
it is Article 4, council will not stop you. License is primarily looking for health safety concerns. It has
No,
nothing
no,
to do
I
with.
understand that. Sorry, my apology. My apology. Let me, yeah. You're right. My point was that you will get permission to use it as a HMO. And obviously it has two sides to it, right? One is obviously the compliance side, but then the second side is that they have a cap on the number of HMOs in a region, right?
Yes and no. Not all councils have clearly defined that.
Okay.
Some councils have clearly defined the cap. Other councils are just like, they just want to be a pain and do not want any more HMOs in the area. That's it.
That is true, but don't you think that the councils, well, if not all, maybe at least many of them, actually have a cap on the number of HMOs? Let's say in a region they only allow 300 HMOs, and let's say out of those 300, let's say 5 of them drop out and they stop being used as HMOs. Then
then what will happen is you'll have to make a case as to those 5 have dropped out and are not being used as an HMO.
Yeah.
Because from a planning perspective, they will never know whether it is up to date or not. It's only the licensing authority with a separate officer who will have a track of what property is HMO and what is not.
That
so
is
to the planning officer, you'll have to, like, the first application will be rejected. When you make an appeal, you need to put all of this together and then present it to them as an appeal.
You're right. Actually, let me just make a distinction here of two things. You have the planning officer, which is completely different from your HMO licensing officer.
Yes.
These are two different things. So, sorry, let me make that distinction for everyone who's watching this. Your planning officer is only responsible for looking after your compliance side of your HMO, while your HMO officer is sorry.
No, you got it wrong.
The other way, sorry. Your planning officer is responsible for making sure that you have the full planning, you have the planning to use it as a HMO, while your HMO officer is responsible for the compliance side of things and making sure that they are, it's not an Article 4 and there's enough space and they're not reaching that cap. Okay.
Exactly.
That is right. Sorry, I kind of mixed it. But at the same time, my understanding is, and from the calls that I have made to certain councils, what they look at it is, it's only after when I learned that from you, is that if there are X number of HMOs in a region, that when you apply, and if it is already Article 4, then they put you on a waiting list. And then when some of those HMOs drop out of the list, which means that, let's say their license is about to expire and they don't reapply again, they drop out of the list. Now there's space in the list, and then they can take on some of the people from the waiting list and give them licenses, even if it's an Article 4 area, just because they have a cap and they need to maintain that cap. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
Yeah, again, see, like,
it's a gray area.
Article 4 has nothing to do with licensing.
No, I know that, yeah.
As long as the property is compliant in all aspects, it will get HMO license.
Okay, go ahead, I'm listening.
So Article 4 basically means to convert a house from C3 to C4.
Yeah.
You need planning permission.
That is right, yeah.
Okay. So Article 4 is your planning permission is your step 1.
Yeah.
This is your concept stage.
That's right.
Yes. So let's go from here. Let's go from concept, and then this is where you're implementing, and this is where your license comes.
That's right. Yes.
So at the concept stage, if you have your planning sorted, if the planning officer has passed, so if it is not Article 4, up to 7 beds, up to 6 beds, you don't need planning. It is under permitted development.
It is under permitted.
For 7 beds and more, you need planning to be converted from C3 to C4.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So once you have C3 to C4, and assume a property was used as an HMO long time back.
Yep.
It has grandfather rights.
Yes.
Now you're making modifications, you're adding a room or doing whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or you're making internal refurbishments, and you're going to reapply for a license. Now, because this property had grandfather rights, it's already considered as an HMO. You don't need planning again. And after you have done all these works, you go to compliance. So compliance is not going to bother about Article 4. He knows it is already
grandfather rights. Yes.
Grandfather rights, and it will just look at the work you have done, whether it is compliant from health safety standards.
That is true. Yes.
And then they will pass it.
That's right. But now we are talking about the grandfather rights. I'm talking about the new conversions.
Okay. So new conversions, what they will look at is, they will only look at whether planning has passed it or not.
Okay. And
if planning has passed it, if planning has passed it, then even if the planning might have passed it 2 years ago, but its planning application is still valid. During the time it might have reached its cap or whatsoever has happened, someone else might have come in and done whatever.
Yeah.
So like property number 1 on street has got planning approval before Article 4 kicked in or whatsoever, and he has not done anything about it. Normally planning application is valid for 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. Once he has got this planning application approved, after about a year and a half or 2 years, he has done the works and then he has come to apply for a license. So even if they have reached that cap of number of houses from a planning perspective, does not mean he's not going to get a license. He will still get a license.
Okay, you're right. You're right there. But what about if someone applies for application now? So they're applying to get permission
Planning.
for the planning. Sorry, they're now applying for
that will be rejected. That will be rejected.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
That will be rejected.
If they are applying for planning now and it's already Article 4, it's very highly likely to be rejected.
Yes.
That's what I meant. So yes, we are both on the same page. At the same time, let's say if some of those HMOs get dropped out of the list and it's already Article 4, my understanding so far is, and from the planning officers and the HMO officers that I've spoken with, they've said that when the number of people, it's like the cap on the number of HMOs in the area. When some of them drop off the list, they open it back again to the waiting list. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
No, you're not wrong. It's like some councils are doing this, not all though.
That is true. I must say,
it cannot be a generalized statement for all councils. Some councils are definitely doing, so it is worth a try. Speaking to your planning officer and your HMO licensing, which is within the environment department.
That is right. In fact, for those of you who are watching this, irrespective of what you learn from this video and from everywhere else, you still need to get in touch with your local HMO officer and your planning officer to make sure that you confirm everything. Reason being, because some councils do it in their own way.
Exactly.
And it doesn't quite apply to every single council. From those that I've spoken with, this rule has actually applied. And I've spoken with about 5 or 6 different councils, and they've all said the same thing. And I've actually spoken with the local HMO officers, and they've kind of given a positive indication on that.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to, okay, so now someone, sorry about that. So now someone has found they've checked the demand, they know what it's like.
Okay. The next step what they need to do is they need to go to their local council where they've found a demand, or whatever you want to call it, gold mine area, you want to call it your focus area, whatever. Once you've identified your focus area or gold mine area, go to the local council and download HMO guidelines from that council. Because some councils adopt the national standards, others have modified it to their requirements. So, like, just to give an example, Northwest Leicestershire, which is neighboring Derby, has a different guideline. They accept ensuite space as part of the room space.
Okay.
Whereas Derby clearly states ensuite will not be accepted as room space.
Okay, and that makes a major difference.
Yes. So one needs to understand that. Only then they can really start creating spaces within a room.
Yes.
Without understanding that, you can never create sufficient space, because you will not be, from space point of view, you will never be compliant if you don't understand.
That's right, yes. Okay, so they go online to the local council's website, they download, obviously the first step is to find out if it's Article 4 or not. And then from then you download the guide as well.
HMO guidelines.
HMO guidelines. Now, when someone is looking for a property in the region, they go to the likes of online portals, Zoopla, Rightmove, half a dozen others. What exactly do they need to look for to convert, let's say, a 4-bedroom property into a 6-7 bedroom, or a 5-bedroom property into a 7-8, maybe even 10-bedroom? What do they need to look out for?
Initially, look out for the floor plans.
Yeah.
Till you get a hang of it.
Yeah.
So look out for the floor plans. Go to the site. Take a digital measuring meter. Once you're there, you try and figure out how exactly what kind of space is there and what can you modify it into. Okay, so and then refer back to your HMO guidelines to identify um, what can it be converted into, like because once you know, your guidelines will say how much. If you want to convert it into a 7-bed, your guidelines will define how much kitchen space, how much communal area needs to be provided. Are you able to provide that or not? If not, if you're not providing, is the room big enough that it'll escape that parameter of wanting a communal space?
Yep.
So you need, it is a, like, till you get a hang of it, it is at least about 2-3 times at the back and forth between the guidelines and between
your architect or your planner.
No, not our architect, your planner. You go to your architect, yes, but before you go to an architect, you need to be clear of what you can achieve.
Exactly. You need to know, you need to be able to analyze the basics.
Exactly. So you do a few times back and forth till you get a hang of it, and then you decide to go forward saying, yes, this room is large enough for me to put an ensuite. This room is, if I'm not putting an ensuite, which 2 rooms am I going to give a common shared ensuite? Where am I putting the kitchen, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so let's say someone has analyzed, and I've come across quite a few of these where I've been asked, and some of the people who we provide finance to as well, they come back to me and say, how do I work out when I'm looking at a property without having to hire an architect or a planner beforehand, which they end up, you'd end up paying a lot of money to. Before that, how do I work out if I can get an extension, if I can get a side extension, back extension, upper extension, loft space, front, side? How can people work out all of that stuff?
Unless you understand the planning rules, you can never work it out. Most planning consultants I know normally give that first 15-minute consultation call free of cost.
Yeah.
Don't misuse that. Don't get yourself categorized as a time waster.
Yeah.
If you end up doing that, the planning consultants will not entertain your calls. But if you're really serious about a property and want to understand, any genuine planning consultant will give you that 15 to 20-minute free consultation call, and during that you'll be able to identify whether that extension is possible, not possible. Alternatively, if you want to get a feel of it, the best is peep into others' neighboring properties.
That is true. Yes, it's actually a very good idea.
Peep into the other neighboring properties. If something has come back, you're more likely to get yours also come back till that point.
That is right. Yes. In fact, when I look at properties, I would walk around the street and say, has someone got a loft? Has someone got a side extension?
Exactly.
Has someone got a back extension? And every now and then, I'd actually, if I'm looking at a property and I'm serious about it, I'd log into the system. I'll go into Google, and I'd play with Google to see the boundaries of properties, to see how it works. And obviously, lately,
actually more than Google, if you have access to Nimbus maps.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Go into Nimbus has a feature of master map.
Yeah.
Go into the master map. That will give you the exact building footprint. So you'll be able to see the various buildings in an area and their footprints, and you'll just get an idea of what it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, lately I've been obviously playing with Nimbus to be able to see the footprint of every building in the region. In fact, when I'm looking at any property, not just HMOs, I'd go on Google. Before I go on Nimbus, I go on Google, and I'd just have a quick look at the street to see what kind of properties are there, how many floors, flats, houses, pubs, commercial properties. I'd look at the whole thing, and then that normally gives you a good idea to what you're more likely to get. Obviously, you can't have a firm answer before a pre-app, or unless you've spoken with a planner. But it does give you a good indication.
True.
Okay. Now let's say.
And then once you get a hang of it, there are various online portals as well. There's one is a thing called Planning Geek, I think by Ian Walmsley. There's a portal called Planning Geek. There's a lot of FAQs. If you read through those FAQs, you'll get a fair enough understanding of what your situation is and whether your thing falls under planning development or permitted development or not.
Yeah. That is a good one. There's lots of forums online as well.
Correct.
Plus, it's always a good practice to surround yourself with a good network where you can go and ask these questions, allowing you to be able to, and like you said, don't misuse the time that a planner gives you, because you want to be kind of the person in their eyes who's serious and wants to get deals done. And that 15 minutes of time that they give you can potentially give you an indication on what would be possible on any property that you might be looking at.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Now, let's say someone has seen this property, he's kind of analyzed, he's seen the street, he's looked at through Nimbus Maps, he's looked at through Google Street View or whatever. He likes it, he calls up the estate agent, he tries to negotiate the property. What's the next step? What is one thing that they can do? And I normally say, speak with the local planning officer, speak with the local HMO officer, get it in writing that what is it that you can potentially do, or whatever the next step might be, or whatever they can tell you, because initially whatever they tell you, if you get it in writing, at least you've got your next step. What is after that?
After that is normally you engage an architect. So the local architectural team, they will come and do a planned, measured survey of the property. So they'll give you existing floor plans, and then you give them your brief, because you would have analyzed it from a certain perspective. So you'll always have, when you're analyzing a property, you'll always have a fallback option. You analyze it as a 6-bed or a 7-bed, and you have a fallback to 6-bed or a 5-bed, whatever. You have different, you would have done your sensitivity analysis from a different perspective, different scenarios. So it's very important that you give a brief to the architect as to what you really want out of it, and then give them an understanding of what can go where. Obviously, there are fire escape routes, which most of us tend to miss. Architects know it better because they keep drawing in day in, day out, and they know how to plan that out. So once that is done, so they will create the exact dimensions to match the local guidelines, and they'll create the floor plans for you. And if that floor plans, if you're doing a 7-bed plus in an, you still need to get planning approval. So that is what you will submit to the planning officer uh, as a planning application to get approval to convert from residential use to HMO use, C3 to C4.
Okay.
So that is your next step primarily. And even if you are not, like say you're just doing a 5 or 6-bed where you don't need to go to the planning officer, ideally after that is done, it's good practice to send your drawings to the HMO licensing officer.
That's right. Yeah.
So let them approve the drawings well in advance, even before you start work.
Yeah.
Just so, like, let them, you have an email chain saying that way 2 things happen. One, confirming all the space requirements are met.
Yeah, sorry, it was breaking. Yeah, it's fine now.
And yeah, space requirements have been met, number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, by way of sending them the plans, you're notifying that you're going to get work done onto the property.
Yeah.
So later, no one from the council can come and complain saying you have not notified the council that you're getting the work done.
Yeah.
So you can always tell them, we'll soon start work on site, and then we'll come back to you once the works have been done for HMO license.
Yeah.
So that is your immediate next step. And during while all of this is happening, the next after that would be, if you're breaking any chimneys. Remember, inside the property, chimney can give you close to a meter square space.
Yes.
That's 10 square feet.
Yes.
Massive chimneys in old property, Victorian properties, can give you, when you knock them off, it'll add another square meter to your room, which will help, which could be the borderline for you to just make that room not requiring communal space.
That is right. Yes.
Or you might want to move some walls. So you are looking at demolishing structural entities of the property. So you just better get a structural engineer to validate whatever demolitions you're planning to do, and if there's any need of steel beams or brackets to put those.
Yes.
So that is the next step. And after that, once that is done, you need to start getting quotes from builders to you'll obviously, as part of your deal analysis, you would have your budgets as to what you can commit to the work. And then now you're getting it compared to actual builder quotes. Remember, the cheapest is never the best.
No, a lot of people think that's true.
Yeah, the cheapest is not the best, and the sad part, which from my perspective as a builder, I don't like doing it. But the sad part is most builders don't give you a full picture of all the works.
No, they don't. That's true.
They start doing things and then suddenly they keep saying this is this add. They'll keep looking for ways to add to their portfolio. Normally I like to give a holistic picture, but okay, at times there is genuine concern because you don't know, once you start demolishing is when you realize what is there behind.
Something
You
comes
cannot
in.
really see from those are genuine additions, I agree, but not always.
Yeah, that is true. So let's just go back a step here. Okay, how does one analyze a HMO deal? Now, we have done quite a few different analyses, but what are the basics to look out for when someone is analyzing a deal? How to make it profitable? And I can cover the finance side, but I'll let you cover the analysis. But what to look out for?
It starts with what is the revenue you can generate. This you can either get from spare room or you could get from portals like property data. Or the best thing is speak to estate agents. So try and do multiple platforms and see what overlaps, and that is what will be the true rental demand. Some estate agents can tend to inflate the numbers just to generate more business, just to sign up with you. They may not really be achieving that either. So like multiple things, and whatever matches you start from there. You get your gross rental revenue per month and then per year. And then you, if it's a commercial valuation multiple, just multiply straightforward with the commercial valuation multiple. It could be 9, 9.5, 10, 10.5, 11, depending on multiple factors.
Yeah, let me cover that bit of things that
you will be able to cover better. So normally what we do is we just take on a conservative side, we take a multiple of 9.5.
Yeah, okay.
So in some cases it's 9, but in general, most cases it's 9.5.
Yeah.
A good ideal scenario would be 10. I have seen landlords getting 10.5, 10.75 multiple as well.
I've seen 12.8.
Exactly. Okay. So that's the best case scenario, but ideal case, pessimistic scenario, I think 9.5 should be okay. 9.5 should be okay, is what I feel. And once you've got that, you've got what will once you have the valuation of it. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It keeps breaking for some reason.
Just give me 1 minute.
It's much better now. Go ahead.
Okay, so once you have the valuation, you take 75% of it. That is what you're going to get in hand from, and that's going to be a commercial mortgage on the property.
Yes.
So now that should cover your purchase price, your stamp duty, your legal fees, your professional fees. When I say professional, it means architect, structural engineer, planning, building regulations, all of that.
Party wall, everything.
Your conversion costs and your sourcing fee if you're paying a sourcing fee.
Yeah.
Plus your finance. If it does not cover and some of it is left uncovered from your 75% of your valuation, then that value that it is not covered is what you are leaving in the deal.
Yes. Yes.
So when we identify how much money we are leaving in the deal, then we look at what is the net income expected. Yes. After paying your bills, after factoring in maintenance, voids, and everything, what is the net income from the deal? Divide this figure by the net monthly income. That gives you the number of months.
Yes.
If the number of months is less than 24, it's still a good deal. That you're making your money, all your money left in the deal within 2 years.
Within 2 years, yes.
So within 2 years would mean the return on the money left in the deal is about greater than 50%.
That is right, yeah.
So 1 year is 100%, 2 years is 50%, 3 years is 33%, 4 years is 25% ROI.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for us, if anything is more than 50%, it is still a good deal.
Yes, in fact, a lot of people would come across this, that in fact, I come across a lot of people who are looking for deals which they can pull out all their money from. And unfortunately, there's very few and far between those deals. So if you're waiting for one of those easy, that's not the best strategy. Best way is to go ahead with anything that gives you about sort of 20% net profit margin, allowing you to pull out at least 80% of your money, or 60 or 80% of your money, and that way you can rinse and repeat. But if you're waiting for that deal that will allow you to pull out all of your money, you'll be sitting for a long period of time before you'll come across that. Going back to property finance side of things.
Jack, sorry, 1 minute. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you do come across that deal, don't delay.
No, don't delay. Grab it there and then. Yes.
Because we have presented such deals to our investors, and they have delayed and they've lost deals.
Yes, that is true. At the same time, again, it just goes back to human nature. But I do believe that with property, the way it is at the moment in UK, you really need to move fast with properties. You don't move fast, you're not going to get the deal. I mean, I've come across some deals that,
True, I'm here, Jack. Just give me 1 minute.
No problem. Sorry for the interruption and delay.
Yeah, I'm back.
So I was saying, going back to property finance side of things, I believe if you are looking for a property that you want to convert to a HMO, if you just take it on a bridge loan, it's a faster way of doing it. If you want to wait to get a mortgage, it just delays the process, and it's a lot more difficult to get a property on a BTL and then try and convert it. It's a lot longer process. It's a lot more faster if you take a bridge loan, where you can get about 65% of the net of the loan. So you put in 35% as deposit, and then if you want more money for the refurb, that you can get about 100%. There's two different kinds of loans there. One is a bridge loan, and then a conversion loan, and then there is another loan. So there's two loans separately that can be used, while there's another loan which is called a refurb loan, which you can get about 80% of the total cost. Which to take an example, let's say if the purchase price is 100 grand, and then let's say the conversion is going to cost you another 100 grand, you only need about 20% of the 200 grand as a deposit. We can potentially get you on a refurb loan about 80%, which is about 160 grand, which is normally a very effective way of kind of converting HMOs. So refurb loans work much better. And then obviously when you're done, and then let's say the commercial valuation comes out at 250, that you're able to pull out at least most of your money that way.
Also, aren't there companies, lenders who are who start you on a refurb loan, and then with the same valuation, they themselves within their in-house, they convert it from a refurb loan to a HMO commercial loan.
That is true. Yes, some of them do.
Commercial mortgage.
There is, to put it this way, only a few lenders are there who actually do this. There are also products where if you're converting a property into a BTL, that you take a refurb loan and it automatically converts to a BTL as soon as you're done with the work. And exactly. Likewise with HMOs as well. But there are very few lenders like that, just so you know. But that's on the finance side of things, that you can get about 80% on the total cost, allowing you to be able to leverage and then rinse and repeat. Then going back to your the factors of your compliance side of things, what are the kind of things that one needs to be aware of when you're actually converting the property into a HMO, besides the areas required, which you can find, which you must go and get it from your local HMO guide on the local council's website, because they can vary slightly from the national guidelines. But what are the compliance side of things that one needs to be aware of?
Compliance side, like if you are putting in steel beams or anything, those need to be covered by fire-rated boards.
Yeah.
If you between communal areas, those need to be insulated by fire-rated plaster boards.
Mm-hmm.
All your doors in between communal spaces or room entrance doors have to be necessarily 30-minute fire resistant doors. So when you're talking about just fire rated doors for that matter, it's not just the door, but it includes the door furniture, it includes a smoke intumescent strip, it includes the door closer. So, and it mandatorily you need to put a sign saying fire door keep closed.
Yeah.
So these are some basic things as far as the fire rating is concerned. And if it's brick wall, it by itself is a fire rate 30-minute fire rated.
Yeah.
But if it is going to be a partition wall, you necessarily need to add, like you have different types of plaster boards in the market. So you need to add, for that you need to add the fire rated plaster boards.
Okay.
And then each room needs to have a smoke alarm, and they ideally should be interlinked.
Yeah.
And the fire exit, which we spoke about some time back, needs to have emergency lights.
Yeah.
And it should have clear signs demarcating which is the exit.
Yeah.
Which way is the exit?
Yes.
And that's more or less like it from a basic compliance point of view.
Basic compliance point of view. I think the basics still are like the your electric certificate, your gas certificate, your fire certificate. Obviously,
yes. That is assumed that it will be there.
It will be there. Yes.
They need to be there. You need to have your NIC EIC certificate.
Yeah.
All the appliances are working fine,
yes.
And you need to have a gas safe certificate that the boiler is gas safe.
Yeah.
And those are assumed to be given.
Yes. So let me point out for those who may not know this. As a landlord, you're supposed to get a gas certificate every year. You're supposed to get an electric certificate, which has come lately every 5 years. And your normal HMO license is about 5 years. So once you apply, you get it for 5 years, and after 5 years, you have to get another license. So yeah, and then at the same time, if you're
another thing is normally the managing agent, if the landlord is managing themselves, then it's okay. If there's a managing agent, the managing agent's name goes on the HMO license.
Yeah.
So if you're changing managing agents, or if you are taking a rent-to-rent HMO and you want to operate it yourself, you're taking it from someone else, it basically means you still need to apply for a license again to get it onto your name.
Okay, so if someone is giving their HMO to a management company, what you're saying is that they have to apply for a HMO license again.
Yeah, basically to add their name onto the HMO license as the managing agent.
But is that a new, it's almost like a new full application, or is it just a small change?
I am not 100% certain whether it's a new application or a small change. I can check and come back to you, but I know you still need to apply. That's all I know.
Okay, so that's good. That's something that even I wasn't aware of, but at least we've mentioned this, and you need to, like I said, you need to, at any given time, irrespective of where you're getting this knowledge from, either from this video or anywhere, you still need to check everything with the local offices, because local council offices, because they may vary from one council to the other.
Exactly.
So it all needs to be checked anyway. Okay.
True.
Now, let's say someone is renting out these rooms. What are the things to look out for when you want to maybe choose a management company, or for that matter, you want to maybe rent it out yourself? What are the kind of things one needs to look out for when choosing maybe tenants? And I've been through that bad journey.
That is not my expertise.
Okay,
my expertise is doing all the work, getting the license and handing it over.
That's it. Okay, so I can share
that. Is my expertise. The second part of expertise should come from Mazi, who's been
doing this,
managing HMO rooms.
That's right. Yes. So I can share that because I've had some experience of that. When you're taking on tenants, guys, just make sure that you really do your due diligence well. You know exactly who the tenants are. You want to make sure that they're professional tenants. You don't want to take on, unfortunately, I have to say this, but you cannot take people who are not employed. You're more likely to have someone who is going to break things in your property. You're going to get that property back in a really bad condition. I personally do not recommend giving properties to people who are not employed, okay? Purely because they trash property. And I've had some really bad experiences in my life where it's difficult to evict these tenants as well. At the same time, they're not very responsive, they're not communicative, and so I don't really recommend. I would recommend to make sure that you choose professional tenants, you check their references, you make sure that you get their IDs. Like I said, making sure that the references are checked, so that you take at least 2 or 3 references, and you make those scores to make sure that these people have been known by these people and they're the right kind of people to take on. Also, I believe when you're taking on tenants, that you want to meet them face to face to kind of have a visual assessment of a person, to see how that person is in the first place. If you are, meeting someone who's like a rude boy, or looks like a gangster, or is talking like a rude boy, I don't normally recommend to take on tenants like that. You'd normally end up in a bit of a trouble with them. So it's a good practice to do your due diligence and to self-assess those tenants before you decide to give your property or your rooms away. Also, don't hesitate to ask for their employment letters or references from their work as well, to make sure that they are what they're saying they are. It's a very, very good practice. In fact, most estate agents, when they are letting properties out, they actually go through the exact process that I just shared with you. So that's that. Anything else you'd like to add, Jasim, that people need to be aware of when they're going through a HMO conversion, they're looking for properties, anything that they need to be aware of?
They need to be aware of, like, see, for example, they should not be too, what I'm trying to say is, you need to create a fine balance between space and what you're providing, between revenue and space. Now, people tend to become a little too greedy and cram in many more rooms where there's not sufficient space. Like, the guideline might say 7 or 10 square meters for the kitchen. Does not mean you stick to 7 square meters and create a very narrow kitchen passage which can hardly be used. So that kind of impacts your lettability of the property, the quality of who lives and what happens and what not. So don't be too greedy. Create that right kind of a balance between space and money, revenue.
I also would like to add, you're right, absolutely there. I'd like to add one more thing, that when you are looking to kind of convert something into a HMO, you want to check the local standard rooms. So you want to check the local spec of the HMO rooms. And I also believe that you should raise the spec of your rooms by at least 10%.
Exactly.
Because if you're not doing that, what you're going to find is that you don't stand out, which again reduces it's like the occupancy rate, right? If you don't compete with the local spec of the region, your occupancy rate may be lower, but if you increase that by about at least 10 or 20%, that you increase your chances of your occupancy rate being much higher. And also that you can charge a premium on your rooms when you kind of increase that spec and stand out.
True.
Okay, so it's been great. Thank you, Jasim, for sharing all this. For those of you who are watching this, we've not covered is the sales and negotiation skills in deals like that, which we've covered in many other videos. So feel free to watch some of the other videos. They're very similar sales and negotiation skills that are required to be able to get these deals move fast. One of the most important things when it comes to property, because there are more people buying properties than people selling. So you do have to move really, really fast. And with refurb loans or bridge loans, that does allow you to move fast. So yeah, thank you for watching. Have an absolutely amazing day. And if you have any questions, by all means, ask below above this video, and we'll try and get someone, either Jasim, myself, or someone else from our team, be able to answer that question for you. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I'll see you very, very soon.